So I've never explained this on camera. So, you know, and it's important for the basketball players to understand this because you work specifically with them, is that first, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So that shooting stuff evolved, though.
Yeah, so the shooting stuff evolved to where I was working with guys personally.
Yeah.
And then through working with them personally, it's like, okay, you can do so much on the court, but what is the rest of their life? Like, you got 24 hours in a day, 2 might be on the court. The next 22, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
And I became like, as growing up in the middle of nowhere, Iowa and stuff, I always had to do everything like a little bit better, figure out ways to get myself to where I wanted to be. So it's the same thing with like what I do now is like with nutrition, with sleep, with longevity optimization. I got super interested in it.
Yeah.
I got to learn from some of the best in these type of areas, like Michael's mental coach, Mumford, or some of the best nutritionists. And so then I started taking that type of stuff and helping the guys with like if Jeremy needed to sleep, help with sleep, be there. So more of like overall their optimization to help them reach their goals. And then in a sense, it's like all comes back together. It's like if you're seeing, you're seeing you get closer to your goal step by step daily. You're getting juiced up about that as it is.
Can I ask you about the consistency? Because for me, you know, I teach activity, 24 hours of activity. I look at things with productivity and accessibility in the 24 hours. I don't define what's done in a linear time frame as anything other than activity. So you listed them out for such a young person. You listed them out very succinctly because I know you understand what I'm talking about when I say sleep is an activity. It's one that you have to be productive and accessible. Understanding that people distinguish things as this is work or not work, and work has a negative energy to it, right? Because it insinuates struggle, resistance. All these, for me, I think there's activities you get paid for and activities you don't get paid for. There's no work in it, and I can give you 25 examples during the day that I do things that people would pay to do, but I get paid to do them.
Exactly.
And I know of things that, you know, I use being a second baseman for the Padres. You know, he's paid to do that, but I'd pay to be a second baseman. I'd pay money. I can afford it, right? If they're gonna let me start, I'd pay money to do that. So is it work? So, you know, just the control of perspective. So any coach, no matter what age you are, right, is not necessarily, there's certain coaching that you need situational knowledge, like how to shoot well. That's a whole separate area of coaching than having this control of perspective coaching. And that's truly a different coach of what you're doing. And that's what I do, is I have coaching clients that are very specific, pragmatic. How do I scale my business? You know, what do I do in this situation? How do I finance this? You know, can you fund this? Can you look at my business plan? That's situational knowledge. That's my, hey, you want to be a Steph Curry shooter? This is how I teach you to scale a business. Exactly. But what is the most powerful thing that I do and that you do is how do you control your perspective? Right? For activity, to maximize the 24 hours. And you're one of the first people who ever sat in front of me and talked about, you know, the linear time frame, because controlling the perspective side of it is the other time frame. So let me explain this to you. You coach fine on the activities of 24 hours. I think because of who you work with, and I'd love to meet, like I'd love to have Clay on here, right? On the podcast, right? It's guys like that you can help me with.
Yeah, for sure.
But where I think it's interesting, if you separate two different time zones, you understand this activity time zone of, you know, 2 hours playing, what are you gonna do with the other 22? But what's more interesting to me is the multidimensional time frame that people live in their own mind. Completely exclusive. Completely exclusive. This is non-exclusive. Around the entire earth, the 24 hours is non-exclusive. In fact, we're all dialed in so tight now, you know, even into the farthest reaches. You know, I was in the Masamare and the Bagani, and there's there's a satellite, and they're watching the fight. Right? Exactly. So they have the time, because it's right there on their cable box, right? Or satellite box, I should say. But where you can accelerate what you want, the manifestation, the proclaiming, proactively allowing things to happen, is, can I coach you on the multidimensional time frame that exists beyond the 24 hours? And the only way to coach multidimensional time is to proclaim for yourself that I am a coach of the consistent controlling of perspective.
Man, you just hit on like so many points that I believe big time in.
I think.
Oh, yeah, like even like Nothing is 24 Hours. That's a chapter that's in my book that I'm writing right now, and the book is all about mindset shifts, which
controlling perspective.
Exactly. Yeah. Which when I listened to yours with Jeremy, like when I told you in that email, like I didn't even realize I'd been listening to you, that it was you, but like everything that I heard was like mindset shifts, because people are just, it's so hard to change somebody, and you know that. Like, you can't change anybody. Can
I stop you there? Because this is a life lesson in, I really think it's an important life lesson. If we could take the amount of time that people waste on trying to change others. Yep. And not just in personal relationships, right? But like I spent years ruining my relationship with my father because I tried to change him instead of understand him. But even moreover in sales, I am a business coach as well. To make money, like you allow your ego to get in the way, and so you spend all your time trying to sell someone that is not emotionally attached to you.
Yep.
And statistically, it takes so much work. Statistically, it's so not successful. It's like trying out for a team or trying to prove to a coach that you're good enough to play, when he has it 99% in his mind that you're never going to play.
Exactly.
And I tell kids all the time, because I coach athletes as well, I tell them you got to leave. And they look at me, what? I'm supposed to fight through this? I said, no, because the amount of time it's going to take you to change his mind, you're better off starting fresh at a lower place and working your way up. I have a premier soccer player that I coach in Europe, and I put him through, he was premier, and the coach there had a perception of his. And I said, are you willing to wait for a new coach? He said, it's not going to happen. I said, go down a division, be the star, and just suck it up for 1 year. And we did. Sure enough, back on Premier League, doubled his salary, and the other coach is now in trouble because he lost that player, because he could not change his mind. And instead, so many players waste their whole career. The years go by, and in their mind, like, I proved that. But the problem is the power of perception. If a coach or a business, if you can't, through your actions, quickly change that, you can't change it.
Exactly.
No, in the percentage of time and statistical success you have it, you're better off starting new with someone else, saying, this person does not align with my perspective of me or appreciate what I bring, and I would like to try to find someone else that can, and leave.
Yep. Like, I wish I had like 30 hours with you, man.
Because there's no fear of loss, right? The problem is most people don't truly believe what they're saying when they can't change someone.
100%.
And so that's why they stick with it and keep on pretending to go through the motions.
Yeah, and you ultimately cannot change somebody unless they want to be changed. And that's where all the mindset, just small shifts, like just the mentality of it's not a have to, it's a get to.
Right.
Just look at things like
the get to, got to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I've listened, I've heard yours, and I love it. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me and through me. That type of stuff is.
Yeah, you listen and learn. You're better than 90% of the people. That's great.
But the stuff that I heard, which I didn't even realize it was you at the time, was like, this is exact. Like, I've listened to a lot of stuff, and I just keep listening because like this is like, I just want to say like thank you for putting that out there, being able for people to hear that. Because you're so right, like even in perspective, like I deal a lot with agents will send me their players for pre-draft.
Yeah.
So I got to help them get drafted. A lot of helping them get drafted in 2 months is not about actually the skill sets they're going to get. It's changing the perception of the GMs, the relationships that I have with NBA GMs of thinking this guy's something that they're not. Because if you get labeled something for the NBA, for the draft too, well, that's what they think you're going to be.
So explain to me, because I think a lot of people, when I'm older, and so they see resistance and say, well, I haven't had the experience and success that you've had. I can't do what you've done, Dave. But the one thing that comes to mind when I watch you is, right, you're sitting here saying, well, my relationships with the GMs. You're a kid from nowhere.
Yeah.
You played at nowhere.
Exactly.
You're a no name.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so am I. Right? I come from nowhere.
Yeah.
I literally, even though I've run big things, nobody knows who I am. Right?
Yeah.
And you can go anywhere. I'm not Leigh Steinberg, but I was the CEO of Leigh Steinberg. I'm not Samsung, but I was the CEO of their first phone division, right? In the PC phone. Not West Publishing that sold for $3.4 billion, but I was a young executive there. Like all these things in my life, but I'm nobody that came from nowhere and nothing. And yet people in their mind are like, you have every advantage. That's why
No advantages.
No advantage. So
None.
how do you, right, explain that to people that, you know, do you mind saying how old you are? Because I don't even know.
31.
31 years old, and yet people pay you to coach kids on how to get drafted because you know the GMs and relationships with the GMs, et cetera, and you're only 31. It's not like you were Kobe Bryant and you were sitting in the GM's office of the NBA or had access when you retired to every GM.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, where's that perspective for everyone out there that says, I can't meet these people?
You talked about it too, and one of the biggest things that I stand for is I call relentless consistency.
Nice.
It's doing.
And I call it consistent persistency, right?
It's different ways to say it, but it really means like you just show up day after day after day. You vote for yourself every single morning that you wake up. I'm a big believer in that. And like speaking things into existence. Like,
yeah.
I've been a shooting coach and I wanted to transform into public speaking and having more of an impact on that. I wanted to write a book, which I'm almost done with. So I said, I'm an author. I want to be an author. I'm voting for myself an author every single morning, an hour a day.
One of the things that people don't understand, and I think too might be some good advice for you, you're very much like me when I was young. Right, I voted for myself. Mm-hmm. Right, I could do anything because I would put it. I'm a Napoleon Hill guy, think and grow rich. Yeah. Right, and I know you are. I can tell already. Yeah. But where things really came to life for me is the difference between you and I. Like for the book, is I voted for me for my book, and Napoleon Hill, you know, was my favorite author, and so I went to the Napoleon Hill Foundation and said I want to write a book like Think and Grow Rich. Right, so I wrote Connected to Goodness, and I asked for help. The reason I lost all my money in my 30s is because I didn't ask for help. The reason I failed at everything is I was all invested in myself, but I had no radical humility. Do you or did you ask for help along the way to get to where you were?
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I've been unbelievably blessed with the people in my life and asking for help. Like some of my mentors, like I said, Casey Wasserman, in basketball. Ron Adams, the assistant for the Warriors, took me under his wing.
Nice. And did you ask them to take you under the wing, or did they offer?
You know what? I just showed them
how
much
you showed up every day.
Them, and I kept, exactly.
It's like here, right? I want to mentor you because you showed up, right? And but I can't explain to people. I can't motivate them to understand the consistent part is, you know, the people that aren't consistent with it. You know, the great intentions. Great
intentions, but it's like anything too. It's like a diet. If someone says, "Hey, I want to go on a diet," I'm like, You're not going to do it. It's a lifestyle. You have to consistently show up. Like the art of showing up. Like if people say,
but consistently showing up every day. Not. Do you know my zero effect philosophy?
I do. And when I heard that, I was like, man, I do like the 29 days, like 28 days to build a habit. It's that 29th day is you.
Yeah.
But I tell people about yours because you're so right.
And it's so hard for them to understand. And then they lie to themselves because they're 99%ers.
Yep.
Right, and it's like trying to change someone.
Yeah.
There's such a waste of energy. And dieting's the easiest one to use as an example. But I see it in all types of things. You know, that book right there that you have with Jack Canfield, right? Pamphlet for Charity, the Unstoppable book that I wrote. It's all for charity. Cynthia Kersey, Jack, and I. But why Jack was so successful was that he got rejected like 120 times for Chicken Soup for the Soul. Yep. Chicken Soup for the Soul is the #1 best-selling book, over 500 million sold. 500 million books sold around the world, right?
Yeah.
But yet, every day he woke up and somebody said no. But he didn't miss a day and say, you know what, I'm going to go try to write another book, something else. This one, you know, he could have after 10 no's, 20 no's, 30 no's, 40 no's, 80 no's, 100 no's.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For sure.
And
could have given in, yeah.
And I believe that the greater the lessons are, is the longer that it takes. So, and I've never explained this on camera. So, you know, and it's important for the basketball players to understand this because you work specifically with them, is that first, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yep.
So the longer something takes is almost inversely related mathematically to the success that you're going to have. So if you consistently keep putting in the journey, which I believe the enjoyment of, the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential, which will allow you to take the longer journey, right? The bigger lessons.
Yep.
And the bigger lessons, guess what? They're result oriented. You get the bigger results. And there's no overnight success. It's Joe Dispenza, I loved it when they said on stage with me one time, Joe Dispenza, Spartan Races, it's an overnight success. And the first thing out of his mouth was, where were you the last 17 years? Right? Yeah. Is overnight 17 years? Because, you know, nobody had any success for the first 15 of them.
No doubt.
Right? And I'm an overnight success in 17?
Yep.
You know, it's ridiculous. I feel the same way with my entertainment career. You know, I'm just blessed with some offers, even working with Mark Wahlberg now, and I have a top digital business show and the podcast. And people say, yeah, you know, there's a young, hot producer, not young anymore, but in that industry, but I'm an overnight success in digital media and with my following. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm a pretty consistent person. And where were you, you know, when I was, 38 years old and lost over $100 million because I paid for my lessons?
No doubt.
And I'm grateful for them,
right.
And I've added value to them, and I give them away to everybody, and I'm here to give them away to everyone. But that's a long time to learn the lessons of how I could be successful.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you hit that on so many levels. Like, people will see what your product is now, but they don't see the relentless consistency that you put in every single day. And like, for you, what draws me to you, when I heard you, and I was like, this guy he doesn't see it as a job, he doesn't see it as a career, he's on a mission. And his mission is to help others. I mean, you're genuinely in it for the right reasons. Like, you don't see it like, hey, I want to, like people say, hey, like, I want to make money. How are you going to make money? Like, you're not going to do it. It's like a diet. It's going to go off.
Right. You can't attach your happiness to it either.
No. And you hit the nail on the head is, how do you get people to enjoy the daily grind? Like, how do you, like, I love the process.
Me too.
Like, I could care less. I don't even know what the end result is half the time.
I don't ever know what it is. I just am confident that it's going to be through me for the best interest of everyone.
Exactly.
Like, I have such confidence that I'm in receivership and that I can't hold on to it.
Exactly. And then when you look at any type of like thing that everybody else looks at as like a failure, or you look at success a different way. Like, I'm a huge believer, if everybody's going one way, you should run as fast as you can the other way. Like the 99 percenters. Like, I call it a 1%.
Yeah. I agree.
So it's just like,
and it's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you help people enjoy the process is the whole journey.
It's so true. And I remember a guy named Sidney Frank who created Grey Goose vodka, right? Mm-hmm. He had that same philosophy, and he found his own frequency. People told him, just like Disney and Einstein, that, things would never work. Right, and he always ran the other way. But my favorite line, I was blessed to do some consulting with him and working with his team. But my favorite thing that he ever said was, Dave, the day the guy shining your shoes gives you stock advice, sell every god-darn stock you had, right?
Yeah.
And it clicked in me like, oh my gosh, he's right. The 99%, the lemmings, the masses. They're not finding their own frequency. They're not thinking for themselves. They don't believe for themselves. They're not in receivership. They haven't controlled two things: the control of their perspective and the consistent nature of controlling that perspective through inspiration, which is the enjoyment of that consistent control of the perspective, right? Which creates persistency, which also creates something called pursuit. Pursuit is a form of inspiration. You cannot pursue something unless you're inspired to do so.
No doubt. Yep.
And people don't get that. If you're going to ask me what verb do you want to live in, I want to live in the pursuit of my potential, the truth. If I live in pursuit, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Because, man, if anyone's done anything, and I'll use running as the classic example, because most sports require you at one time or another to run. Yeah. Most.
For sure.
Sorry, Tiger Woods. Most. If you've been in a quarter-mile race or a mile race, anything in that type of distance, and you're there and there's somebody 2 steps in front of you, you're in pursuit.
Yeah.
Right? You're in pursuit. And, I love the idea that, and it's not that I'm competing against that person, it's that person's allowing me to pursue my potential. Because if I was out in front, and you see this so many times, and I learned last night from Ed Milet, who you may know.
For sure.
Did you know in the heavyweight division of UFC, this was the first fighter ever to defend his title twice? Because once they win, it takes such pursuit that the guy behind him has too much pursuit, and it's always overcoming them. right? Because the skill sets are so much in equilibrium, that desire, which makes it so attractive, the UFC and Bellator and MMA. It makes it so attractive because it's so desired based. Unlike boxing, when like Klitschko or Tyson, where you got to a boring time where, you know what, his skills are so good, nobody can beat them. Right? What makes the NBA still interesting is, although we have a dream team today that people can argue is the best team ever, or even when Michael Jordan played for the Bulls and they can argue that, it doesn't matter. Are there enough teams that are in the pursuit that make it? The best thing that happened to the NBA is when LeBron James took a less than team with some few lucky things with Draymond and some other things that happened, but he beat the dream team.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That's so great, right? Yes. But they sit there. Steph Curry does not play the same way because he's not in the pursuit. KD does not play the same way because he's not in the pursuit. They're almost there. Kobe, right? There's just a level of, oh my gosh, a difference between one player I've never won and I got 5 rings.
For sure, exactly. And that's even, like I say, Ron Adams, like my coaching manager. I was just up with him before the season started. It's the Warriors, maybe the best dynasty put together. And he's like, man, it's like expectations are, if you win, you have to win. It's not even like enjoying the moment anymore when you win. It's just expectations.
And to that matter, one of the reasons that we excelled over our skill set in sports is because we had less skills, right?
Exactly.
Is we were always in pursuit our entire careers.
Yep.
We always had something to pursue.
Yep.